question number 2 is CAA. And, I really felt very strongly about the way there were attempts to polarize the Muslim population during the Shaheen Bagh event and, 2000, I think it was 2019-20 period, in the intervening winter. It was terrible. I mean, we took a very strong line on it as a channel. We, in fact, supported. But I am curious to know, I'm going back to Sri Lanka again, that during the Sri Lankan civil war, there were some 10,000 army troops. We sent our army there to help, solve the situation there. There are between anywhere 4 to 6% of Indian Tamils in Sri Lanka as per varied estimates. There is a population there. There is an agreement which has been signed between India and Sri Lanka. We have promised to repatriate Sri Lankans. A lot of it has not happened. Long and short, my question is that why would the CAA really logically not apply to the Tamil population in Sri Lanka? Because you will say there is already a treaty for Tamil repatriation, but then the same applies for everyone who does not come under the persecuted minority category. In the case of Tamils in Sri Lanka, and that's a long question, but in the case of Tamils in Sri Lanka, the primary filter of persecution is established. And if CA is about persecution, then why do the Tamils of Sri Lanka not come under the ambit?
No, I think you are completely mixing up apples and oranges here. Look, the CAA is derived from a certain period and a certain set of decisions in our history, directly from the partition. It deals with the aftermath of the partition. Okay? What happened in the aftermath of the partition was that different post-partition states were left with minorities, and it was the obligation of the states to look after the minorities. Okay, and that was the basis for the Nehru-Liaquat Pact. When the Nehru-Liaquat Pact was being concluded, in fact, there were wiser voices, saner voices, which counseled, saying, look, you are trusting a Pakistani government which already has a certain mindset, a certain ideology, a certain attitude to behave like you are behaving. And they will not do that. Okay. And this is something which was very, very sharply, repeatedly, specifically, particularly Shama Prasad Mukherjee, I think, was a proponent of the view. But he's not the only one. A lot of others held that view. What we have seen after that has been actually a treatment of minorities which caused them to look for safety elsewhere. Now, in many cases, if you look at the minorities concerned, where else will they go but go to India? Okay. So that was the logic of the CAA. The Sri Lankan situation is very different, because in the case of the Sri Lankan situation, the issue pertained to the what were called the Indian origin Tamils, and those were negotiated and settled through negotiations. So I think you cannot compare what was happening in Sri Lanka with what was happening with Pakistan. I think they are totally different situations. We are, through CAA, we are trying to do justice to a set of people who, in a sense, were caught on the wrong side of history, who are let down by the assumptions of the then rulers of India that they will be looked after in the place of domicile.
Could the same not apply to the Tamil Hindus, that they were left on the wrong side of history?
No, again, no. I think this analogy, I think, is not justified.
But is there also not an assumption here that India is the natural home for Hindus? That is the argument that the BJP puts when CA, okay, so Mr. Jaishankar, let me just give me a moment on this. The position technically as government and foreign policy is one thing, but the position politically is that India is the natural home for Hindus, and the BJP has made India the natural home for Hindus. Now, Maldives today, we all know the Islamist forces. I'm not talking Islamist politics which is going on there. It's a Muslim majority country with some 99.6% Muslims. But there is a 0.3%, 0.4% of Hindus. So if the question is that India is a natural home for Hindus, then should that lever not be open for us, that if Hindus were to be persecuted and the politics were to be sharper in Maldives, we should bring them back equally, allow me to complete. We do hear of persecution and torture of Tamil Hindus. This has been a persistent political issue, so why should they be excluded from the process?
No.
Why should partition define our present-day politics?
No, look, partition does define our present-day politics because it was such a fundamental, you can say, mistake, and whose consequences are still being felt today. So let us not wish away partition as just another event in our history. It has had consequences. Those consequences today still continue to shape the politics and the foreign policy and the strategy of the entire Indian subcontinent. So let's keep the centrality of partition very much in view. Again, I put it to you, I do not agree with the implicit suggestions that somewhere you are drawing an analogy between the situation in Pakistan and the situation in Sri Lanka. In the case of Sri Lanka, and on the contrary, it is our position that the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka should be assured a life of dignity, that they should be given equal rights. So on the contrary, it is not that we are encouraging Tamils in Sri Lanka to come to India. That has never been the policy, nor in my mind would that be the right policy. So I do not accept the framework in which you are asking that question.